and I rehearsed this without a giant piano on the stage. There it is again. He just told you who I am. It's so fantastic to be here in Portland, Oregon. It's my very first time. Portland is the most Portlandish city I could have ever imagined. I'm the CEO of Starlight Runner Entertainment. I started the company in 2000 with friends of mine from Flushing, Queens. And we've gotten to do some amazing things that have included all the stuff that was just listed. But we're not going to talk about any of this. Because we're talking about creativity, and that's really something that in its origins allowed for me to do what is just impossible, and you'll see why. Today I want to talk to you about something I've never spoken about before, the liminal space and crossing it. I think all of us can look at the screen and think that at one point or another we felt this way, both in terms of its breathtaking majesty and in terms of its Lovecraftian existential horror. Before I continue, let me set this up. I am not comparing myself to you. So this isn't a competition about who had the most horrific life. This is not a rags to riches story. It's not even about identity and whether it's erased or rebooted. It's not about gender or sexuality. You'll forgive the fact that I'm repeating a few of these things. I have not seriously done this before, so I have cheat notes on the screen. This is about mindset, our mindset. It's about this thing between our ears, which already today we have learned can be a pain in the ass. I've met and gotten to work with fabulous visionaries who did not emerge out of chaos. James Cameron, Steven Spielberg, Walter Parks, Amy Pascal. They led, okay lives and still have generated fantastic creative works. I was raised in the Baruch housing projects, the Lower East Side of New York City in the 1960s. There was a lot riding against me, so I know we're not doing comparisons, but let me do chaos for just a few seconds so you understand. That's my dad, Jose. He wasn't around when I was born. I was born in a women's shelter on Staten Island. My mom was alone because she fell in love with Jose, a Puerto Rican. She was a nice Jewish girl. Such things were not to be. I was a forceps delivery, and they leaned real heavy, paralyzing the left side of my face, giving me that kind of crooked smile. And I was Puerto Rican, which, believe me, at that time was not such a good thing. My early life would be one that was pretty messed up. I got hit a lot. I was made to be afraid of the vermin in the apartment. I did not respond well to the rice and beans, which were laced with lard, making my digestive system completely messed up. I needed to get out of there, but at 2, 3 years old, not going to get too far. So, bedtime stories, mythology, dinosaurs. And early anime, I don't know if anyone in here remembers Gigantor, Speed Racer, yes. Kimba the White Lion, Marine Boy.
Good stuff.
So cool. They were epic. They were serious. They took you seriously. That wasn't as Bugs Bunny and shit. The characters in anime remember what happened in the last episode, right? We Americans, we hit the reset button. But these things, no está macho. It's not good for a boy to like such things. It was girl stuff. And the word, with my little broken smile and my long hair and my cartoon shows, I heard it. I didn't know what it meant at the time. It was in Spanish. This is what they said. What they said. Well, all right. Where am I going to find peace? Okay, maybe in my bedroom for a few hours a day, where the top of my bed would be this tableau of warring dinosaurs and shit I'd find around the house, rag monster. But where else? Where did I rule? Where did I have power and control? The classroom. And I got the highest grades in PS 97. I was the teacher's pet. They loved me. I skipped 3rd grade because I was gifted. But the first day of 4th grade, Mrs. Boyle, she looked like her name. I was on these chairs, which if you, in New York, once you get past a certain grade, the chairs have to get a little higher. I wasn't used to that. I was supposed to go to 3rd grade. The chairs were still low. So I was on the taller chair, and I'm a rocker, if you get my drift. I fell. Jeffrey, though, stand in the corner. I was like, I couldn't even understand those words. It had nothing like that had ever happened to me before. She had to come up, grab the back of my head, and drag me to the edge of the room. I looked at the corner where the walls met. And I can't rule here. This was the house of chaos too. It's as if something snapped behind me and I was shot through that line that divided the walls into space, into this vast emptiness. And I was absolutely alone. There were things in the darkness, massive, hulking, global things, because they were like planets. That's how huge and vast it was out there. But it was also endlessly empty. But somehow my mind, it was firing. I was making connections. Something was happening. That night, I wrote my first novel. It was, 7 pages long. Dinosaur, monster from the past. and it was about me and a really mean Tyrannosaurus who, I don't know, kind of liked me. And I kept going and doing more and producing pictures and stories and so forth. But you know what? I brought something back from the liminal space, and it made me afraid. So there was more rocking. I became concerned about doors. Is it locked? I checked. It was locked. But I turned around to go away, and I thought, Is it locked? Is it really locked? Again and again and again. I checked the windows. We were on the 13th floor. Not too much is going to get in. And then the cabinets and the kitchen drawers. At the same time, I needed to talk into paper. I needed to describe things, to tell stories. I had this explosive burst of creativity. And sometimes I would look for those lines so that I could slip between them. And I'd be still for minutes and minutes and minutes, gazing into nothingness. But for me, it was either wonderful or truly terrible, like waking nightmares. I have night terrors, stories, plays, just my way of seeing things. Some of it was like not so bad. Flash forward to 79, because they don't give me much time up here. I'd been sneaking into the city. We moved out to Flushing. My mom was very clever with the system, if you imagine. I was watching quintuple feature kung fu movies, the most disgusting horror films, observing how the audience was watching those films and how they interacted with the films and each other, sometimes sexually, sometimes quite violently, sometimes both at the same time. And there I could be someone else, there on the streets. I called myself by different names because I was kind of weirdly nice. One dude called me Galahad. I had this leather jacket and some abs. I could make money. It didn't go well. I woke up in an abandoned tenement one day. Rats. And my guy, Diablito, he was dead. I looked at him, he was so beautiful, but he was gone. And I just moved to that space again. And it wanted me dead too. Because you can go too far. And whatever is anchoring you, whatever is connecting you with us, it can snap. It can go away. Is that what I wanted? Is here where the story ends? It's true. In my jeans, I had the two towers stuffed in my back pocket, all ratty. It was that edition. I was furious, and I could be a storyteller. If Frodo can get out of this, I needed to, especially because I'd read a lot of shitty novels before I read Tolkien. And, you know, I knew that they were bad at that age. I can be better, I can try to be more like Tolkien. And I needed to move in this liminal space. And I don't know how it is for you, but my ass caught fire. And I started moving, maneuvering. My force of will, if you will, started propelling me through this space, enabling me to navigate. I started building what to do in that darkness, force of will. Why should this happen to Diablito? Why should it happen to me? What can I do with the time, as Gandalf says, that we have been given? The liminal space became my cosmic garage. There was always that threat. You go there, you could lose yourself, and it was scary. But there were these endless possibilities, as if I could draw from every connection in my mind, in my experience, and piece them together in a million different ways all at once. And I put Middle Earth on that hydraulic lift and started taking it apart, understanding how Tolkien did what he did. Because after all, words are a mechanism. I found in this story, in all stories, throughout time, throughout history, and around the world, an answer. It is what is born in us from the first second that we emerge from our moms. Desire. Desire. That is the tiniest little building block of story. Desire. Flash forward, 94. I had a lot of desire, but not too much know-how, and my career, it wasn't going that well. And now I'm the assistant to the editorial coordinator at Valiant Comics. As the assistant, I got to see the faxes when they came in, and I'm Snoopy! The comic book company was going to be bought by a video game company. The video game company had just lost the rights to the Marvel superhero characters. They wanted their own. Now, I had played a whole lot of Dungeons and Dragons by this time, and a few video games. I knew something about this, and so I let the boss know, and he goes, so, which superhero should be the first Nintendo 64 video game? And for once, I shut out and said, let me get back to you. And I decided to figure out how to write my version of the perfect superhero video game. So I asked for the specs to the Nintendo 64. They gave them to me somehow, just landed on my desk one day, and I didn't understand a thing. I got upset and started to research video game development. There was such a thing in the library. They held these professional magazine, periodical type things there, and but more so the liminal space. And I saw the diagrams, and they implied that you can move around in the world. You can circle things in Nintendo 64. And those were like Dungeons and Dragons. I'm describing stuff, you're moving around in an environment. It's like what Tolkien did in Middle Earth. So all these connections came to me, and I had to whittle them down to just long enough to be a concept document. I wrote it nights for weeks, and I dropped it on my boss's desk. I didn't hear anything for months. And suddenly, one day he said, pack your bags, you're going to work with Iguana on Turok, Dinosaur Hunter, the video game. That game, a year or so later, shipped $90 million. It did better than all the movies that had come out thus far that year in 1995, or 96. I did good. I got to do a bunch of things. It was fun. I worked on Magic the Gathering, again, creating all these connections. Magic the Gathering, the fictional world, is partially based on my Dungeons and Dragons campaign. Tell that to your kids. D&D pays. D&D pays.
That's right.
So I took all that money and did something stupid. I made an independent film. Because back then, a 35 millimeter a short film could cost you $40,000, $50,000. And you know, I had still been plagued. This OCD was killing me. The stress, the tension, the anxiety, the fact that my bosses were unfair to me, and so forth. It was harming my relationships. I was becoming alone, even in success. So I decided that I had to do something bold again, just like I did in that tenement. And I was going to exhibit this thing that I had kept hidden all my life. I was going to shine a light on my shame and disclose my issues to 100 crew people on the set of Red Light August. And in doing so, I hired a beautiful director of photography, Derek Wan from Hong Kong. He did the Jet Li movies. And he converted this thing which had only ever been truly horrific in me into something that was beautiful. He altered, I altered, we altered, through these connections, my mythology. After they saw the film, they said, maybe we should cut out a few parts. It's a little much, and maybe we can't bring it to Cannes, and so forth. And the money was towering up. But you know what? We went to Park City, and I had friends in the comic book business. They created this fabulous poster, which was hung all over Park City, drawing the attention of Michael Ovitz's people, the super agent. They saw the film, and they whisked me to Hollywood. And I was able to form Starlight Runner Entertainment out of the opportunities that availed themselves. I don't know if there's a lesson in there somewhere. 2005, I'm sitting in a room with Johnny Depp, and my life depends on getting information out of him because Disney wants me to make some kind of sense of Pirates of the Caribbean so they can monetize it across every division across the planet. They're about to make Dead Man's Chest. And nobody understands what the hell this thing is about. The fact that it was successful in the first place was a miracle and a fluke. And you know what? I had not a clue. I didn't like pirates. They were nasty. So here he is. I begged them to let me talk to him. And you know, I see something in his eyes. And I said, I heard it was hard to become Jack Sparrow. They'd given him a hard time. It was tough for him. And he whispers. I had to lean forward. I was lost. We'd started shooting, and I didn't know how to find the character. But I found him in between the bathroom mirror and my reflection, balancing between the twin voids of nobility and savagery. Jack Sparrow, like a fractal in my liminal space, it informed everything about that franchise, everything about the stories being told, and everything I had to say about Pirates of the Caribbean, and have it inform everything that would be made from Pirates of the Caribbean. And I felt so strongly about the fact that all of us needed to find that balance, that I helped the Walt Disney Company to create a franchise clearinghouse, the Pirates Task Force, where members of the divisions of the entire company would get together and talk about the assets they had, the story, and create a continuum, a storied world out of pirates. It was a pattern they would wind up repeating. Mm-hmm. Some say that, storytelling is magic. Well, the result can be magical. But storytelling is construction. It is an artful interpretation of the facts made by those of us with different perspectives. Defectos. In that tenement, I realized my experiential manifold, the life that trailed behind my head to my birth, was not locked by separating the facts of my life from the drama, the mythology of my life. I could remake myself. I could do a rewrite. I could engineer my own story and therefore be able to engineer the stories of others. I could play it grand. I didn't have to be some schmuck from Flushing. Well, maybe. So this is important, people, the experience of manifold. Distinguishing fact from drama. Oh, if only our whole country distinguish fact from drama. Fact is this. It exists in 3 dimensions. Your emotions are fact because they're chemicals that are firing in your mind. What is triggering the emotion is drama. What you have to say about the facts informed by your life, by your manifold. If we could go into the liminal space and, like Tony Stark, push the things aside just to look, just to examine, just to know, then we can make some rearrangements. You can bridge the void. So after working hard to learn the mechanisms of story, I could return to the liminal space, fix a story or vastly expand, devise cosmologies. My job, whether it's Disneyland, Halo, or a nation. That's Madeline Albright, god damn it.
God damn it.
Grappling with a social crisis. You can cross the liminal space. You and supercharge your creativity. People, we as creatives, we're always going to be different. But even the fact that we're out there in the space doing this creativity in a vacuum, it's just not going to work all the time. We require communication. We can't be alone. Even if the people that we're talking to don't really understand, and I know that pisses you off, and I know that sometimes it's really trying because they don't get it. They're your closest friend and they just look at you like that. Oh. You have to love them for trying, but then go do your work. We're alone. You know, we see things and we go, holy crap, that is so fucking awesome. Don't you see it? No. Your communication requires imagination, a specific aesthetic for them to understand. You do have to make someone understand. Maybe even a handful of people. In fact, our audience, it may not be anyone right now. It may not be anyone you know. But it doesn't have to be everyone. This I've learned. It doesn't. I may happen to play on some big stages, but it does not have to be everyone. It has to be the people who feel you. Even a small number of those people can be satisfying if they genuinely feel you. Those comic book people, you know how many copies a comic book sells these days? 30,000. But boy, they love the writers and the artists. So a few thousand of anyone, and you can make kind of a living, they're responding to your message, your aesthetic. It could be more. All right, demons. Because we all love to talk about our demons. I am haunted. Get rid of them. When they're inconvenient, when they're getting you down, and not through some exorcism, some ritual. but through the work of separating facts from drama. Mythology can be fun. Mythology makes us right? We hold on tight to rightness, because if we don't have that, what the fuck? Well, actually, if we don't have that, we are in the liminal space where you don't have to be right. Your story of woe is beautiful. I'll listen to it. But what's also beautiful is being able to shift out of it, rewrite that narrative, tap your creativity, your capacity for love and joy, and tell us a story, create something. Break that spiral, right? Because if we fall or get dragged into that space, it can result in some serious stuff. Look at the great rock stars that we've lost. When you feel unmoored, drowning in negative feedback loops, spiral, you have to give yourself choices. Choices make you snap out of it, right? And listen, to do that, we may have to actually do something. We have to put ourselves in vital situations that are outside of ourselves, ones that require some thinking, some fast decisions, some empathy with others, assistance, purpose. All right, take bold opportunities, something you couldn't have imagined. Volunteer, guide, rescue. I teach. Observe the dynamics of that circle that you're in and take it into the liminal space to help you pull apart stuff and put it back together. In the products you're creating, your emotions are going to be the most influential factors. Your philosophy slips into your work. You cannot be disconnected from the themes. You have to try and find yourself in the story you're telling. You must experience its joy and pain, not just its aesthetics and plot. So if you're not feeling it, find a way. We can't ignore the liminal space. This last thought. All of your art exists in the same universe. Your personal art, your expression. And that, to me, is beautiful, the interconnectedness of what it is that you, as an individual, have to say through the span of your life. Look at its symphony, how its theme and variation works. Find it. It's there. I do that all the time with people. I can find it. That can be your legacy. That universe is governed by your mindset, your mental state. So I need you to take care of yourself. And I want us to make a commitment here today to take care of each other. We have a little thing called social media. How about using it for something positive? Let's take care of one another. From these stories, we can build ladders and climb up and out of everything we know to find a better place. Even if we're scared and scarred, lost in a merciless city, even if there are already 3 strikes against us. Here are a couple of ways to learn more. Tomorrow, I'll actually talk about the projects and things like that in the Blockbuster Story World Development Workshop. If you're interested in that, there might be a few slots open left. You can talk to the people who run this wonderful CreateCon. I'm also announcing for the first time, right here, right now, that Starlight Runner is going to do what, well, we've been doing for years and years, but we're going to do it more formally, and we're going to talk to you. We're going to be coaches and counselors, my whole company. So when you call us up and say, I want you to tell me how I can improve my creativity, get a better career and so forth. You'll get me, but you'll also get the creator of Deadpool and our chief creative officer and some of our friends who are in the arts and entertainment industry. And that's my email if you're interested in that. Feel free to directly connect with me. Thank you so much, people. Thank you.